every day, multiple times a day. We fall in love with our customer. If you don't fall in love with our customer, he's not going to give business to us. You agree with me, no? Yes or no? So I think everyone in this room understands the importance, the value of customers. I remember 64 years plus ago when India got freedom. I don't know how many of you remember Jawaharlal Nehru's speech. I'm sure we've all read about many of the excerpts. Maybe we've heard the speech as well. But he said many, many things. And one of the interesting things which he said was that the future beckons us. And I think it is true for all of us every day that we walk into office. You open the newspaper and you wonder what's going to happen to your next deal. You wonder whether your customer is going to put a brake on the purchase decision. You start looking at yourself and start wondering that at the end of the month, when I have to sign paychecks for everyone who works for you, whether you will have the ability to do that or not. And I have friends like you who run businesses and said that one day they went to the bank, they had to pay salaries to their employees, they had 2,000 rupees left in the bank, and that was a day that they dreaded and didn't want to see that day again. And they brought their business back and brought it to great health. So I think all of you here, I salute you. You run very successful businesses. It's a great opportunity for me to meet many, many old friends. For some of you who I haven't met in a while, I'm still alive and kicking. I'm a fellow traveler like you. So we are on the same journey, and our journey is to help our customers transform their businesses so that they can become successful, and hopefully we can add wealth to this country as well. A few fundamentals which I wanted to share with you. We are seeing a lot of changes occurring as far as the technology landscape is concerned. I don't want to talk about technology. All of you know enough about technology, know more than me about the bits, bytes, snakes, and innards of every computing device that man makes today. But there are a few fundamentals which I wanted all of us to kind of reflect back on. I go back to, and I like to just take a few instances from my own career. It was 1985, 1986, and many of you would remember that that was just about the point in time PCs were coming into India. That was the era of distributed computing. I used to work for a company which was a small company at that time, not a small company today. No one frankly knew that company that much. There was a phone call which came into the reception of our office, and somebody said that, look, we are looking for one PC. Now that was a real big deal. You get an inquiry for one PC, someone calls your office up. I was fortunate, it was 7 in the evening, most of the sales guys had gone home. I was still floating around. I used to stay in office till midnight every day for years. And the reason I stayed till midnight was that I really felt that I could reach my peak after 9 in the evening. So at least I said I must work 3 hours in a day. So 9 to 12 I would work and go home. And then turn back in the morning because generally everyone was there, my friends were there. So we had a good time. So picked up the phone, I said fine, and so one PC inquiry. It was a Government of India department. I can't tell you the name of the department because I was sworn to secrecy, which I'd still like to keep that way. It was many, many years ago. Can't name that agency. So we went in there, and the customer said, yep, I haven't heard of you guys. Do you guys really have a product? I mean, or is this just a figment of your imagination? I said, no, sir, we have a brochure. He says, I know many companies who have only brochures, don't have products. So I said, okay, I'll get a PC and show you. I went to the office. I picked up the PC, which was lying on my boss's table, took an auto rickshaw. I used to travel by bus in those days, couldn't afford. I had no vehicle. I couldn't even afford a bicycle. This is where our industry began. It's the truth. It's the honest truth. Got into an auto, showed the customer, here, look, this is the PC. And he said, all right, now I will shortlist you. I said, shortlist? I thought that I'm going to close the order, right? I did all this, I ran around, you believed I didn't have a product, let's talk price and let's close. And he says, no, there's a presentation. I said, all right. And he said, I just want to let you know that actually, though the inquiry has been floated for one PC, actually we need 40 PCs. 40 PCs. I said, 40 PCs? I mean, that's more than my entire region is going to sell, in the next 6 months. So I got really interested. I said, can you help me understand the requirement a little more? And he said, well, what we are actually trying to do is, our requirement is really not for a PC. Our requirement is actually for a computer through which we can do distributed computing. Now, my challenge was that my company didn't make those products anymore, or made products which were slightly more expensive. And I knew that if I got into this trap of distributed computing, I would really lose at the end of the day. So I said, all right, so this requirement is for 40 PCs. Just help me understand what you need. And he said, this is what we are looking for. We are looking for an intelligent compute and looking for some dumb terminals. And we want to go and do some computing. And I said, what is the operating system? He said, the operating system could be CPM. I don't know how many of you remember that. You have to go back into history, right? CPM, concurrent processing environments. And I said, okay, great. I went back home that day and I asked the customer, how many vendors have you called for the presentation? He said 10. 10 vendors. And I said, what is my presentation slot? He says, I'm sorry, but it's the last slot. I said that, how much time will I have? He says, actually everyone has a flight to take, so you might get 10 or 15 minutes. So I said, I've got 15 minutes, I'm the 10th guy there, and if I don't decide to do something different, I'll be the 10th guy there talking about yet another PC. I was a front-end sales guy, it's 1986. I came back and I reflected, and I said, let me try and understand, what does this customer really need? And if I go and make yet another PC presentation saying that I've got this fantastic PC based on Intel 8085, what's my differentiation? Nothing. My differentiation, I'm not even a company which can go and turn around and say, look, my services are better than anyone else. I mean, no one even knew us at that time. In fact, if I took that path, I thought I would absolutely lose the deal. So I went into that presentation. I'll never forget that day. I went into that presentation. I was a young, relatively younger sales guy at that time. And I was amazed. I walked into this room, and I had never seen so many senior government officers ever in my life in one room. And as I said, I can't share the name of the agency even today. And they said, Manoj, thank you very much for your time. We have a flight to take, so can you tell us in 15 minutes what you want to tell us? And I said that we didn't have PowerPoint, and I said that I just want to use your board for a few minutes, and they said, sure. And I spoke about something which none of them had heard of in that room that evening, and that transformed the way this organization implemented IT, and perhaps a lot of what many organizations did thereafter. I spoke about IEEE 802.3. I don't know how many of you remember that, right? That's Ethernet. Nobody in that room, none of the 9 vendors had spoken about networking. And I said that instead of distributed computing, suppose you took a different tech and you used Ethernet as the protocol so that you could drive greater intelligence at each of the nodes rather than sharing resources. Do you think that is a paradigm you're willing to accept and take? That presentation ended 3.5 hours later. Everyone had canceled their flight. 3 weeks later, I was sitting, final negotiation. Customer called me in, and he said, Manoj, now let me tell you what is my real requirement. He said, my real requirement is more than 100 PCs. More than 100 PCs. And he said, we just can't let people know what's our real requirement. And I understood that. And he said, how much discount are you going to give? I said, I can't give you a discount. The value of the deal was 90 lakhs, 90. That was a great part of my company's turnover for that year, by the way. I can't tell you the name of the company I worked for. A lot of guys know which companies I worked for. It was a large part of the turnover for that company, 90 lakhs. Now, 90 lakh deal at that time. The discussion went to payment terms, right? This is where your heart sinks. 90 lakhs, haven't seen an order of that size. Hands were trembling. Guy said, what are your payment terms? What do you think I told him? I said 100% advance. And he said, why do you want 100% advance? I said, because I'm a very small company. I have to send somebody to Taiwan to buy the parts. I need to make sure that I can put my manufacturing in place. I have to make sure that all the engineers that support you are paid their salaries. And I need to make sure that my organization runs, I want 100% advance. That's the government department. We struck the final deal. And the final deal was 90% advance. 90% advance, 10% on delivery. And I said, I can't wait for installation because I don't have that capability to wait for that to occur. And the reason I share this with you is that many of us, when we walk into customer organizations, we believe that, and I know many of you will be on the phone here, right? How much is the customer saying? 30 lakhs, need 29, need 28, need 27, need 26. Let's go back to the OEM vendor. Let's put 2 pennies from here, 2 pennies from here, 3 pennies from there. The fact is, none of us actually turn and take a step back and say, what is it that the customer really needs? And can we go and change the way the customer is thinking about how they want to go and how they want to deploy IT? So my first message to everyone is, nothing has changed. This market was competitive. This market is competitive. This market will always be competitive. What has to change is all of us and our mindsets. We have got used to making money very easily in the past. The fact is we are finding it more difficult today. The fact is we'll find it even more difficult tomorrow. The fact is that many of us have commoditized our businesses when we should not have commoditized our businesses. Many of us have gone in front of our customers and educated our customers to the extent that today our customer knows which next processor is coming than our own field and sales teams. Why the hell should the customer get to know? I mean, does Mercedes-Benz or does Maruti or does any car manufacturer actually sit down, open the hood and share with you exactly the specs of every little component? We do that. We do that in front of the customer. The customer will soon start asking you what kind of display technology is the monitor that you are going to supply have, and does that display technology have these 3 fancy features? Frankly, how does it matter? How does it matter? What matters is, can you help the customer become more efficient? Can you help him to reduce cost? Can you help him to become more profitable? Can you help him achieve a business need which he would not have been able to achieve? If you can do that, you will be successful. And I think that is a question I think each one of you should answer for yourselves. You don't need to answer to me. You don't need to raise your hand and say, this is what we are doing. Look at the sale that your sales teams and you are making. Ask yourself a question. What is it that I am doing unique here which none of my competitors is doing? If the answer is, there is nothing, I am also supplying, and let me just take the name of a vendor, an HP PC or a Dell PC, HP PC maybe passed, but you know, IBM PC or Dell, or IBM's also passed, right? Dell PC or whatever PC you want. Too many PC guys are going in the past. So I'm just saying that the reality of life is you guys need to actually ask that question to your sales guy. You've gone to this customer, what is it that you have told differently as a story as compared to the rest of the guys? If the answer is we have not told a different story, your second question is, why are you wasting my money by traveling all the way to the customer and making me look bad in front of all my friends when I meet them at the CRN event because I'll be less green than everyone else, right? Don't do that. Very hard to do. Very, very hard to do. But please do that. Ask that question. So I'd like to set the tone by saying that things are never going to be easy. 30 years ago when I started selling, I started my sales career in North Bihar. Now Bihar. Now South Bihar is Jharkhand, as many of you know. At that time it was called North Bihar. And even today people fear to go to Bihar, you know, when you talk about doing business in the IT industry. So you can imagine over 30 years ago when I went into that time North Bihar, I went into Muzaffarpur and Bhagalpur and all these wonderful places, Munger, that was my territory. The fact is I had a quota, I had a number, and I had to do it. And I had to find customers where you could go and sell. And if 30 years later I still have a job, that means I probably did something good in those early years to survive and still get my salary and kind of remain alive. So I want a promise from all of you that we will not let this industry get more commoditized. I think we have done enough harm to ourselves. Do you agree with me or disagree with me? Agree. Who's gone and taught the customer bits, bytes, and snakes about computers? The customer has not gone to any computer science class or school, right? I will just tell you, And I disagree. You know, I was on your side of the table most of my life, right? So I've been on both sides of the table. Who has let the OEMs take the lead? I can tell you, when I was a systems integrator, every OEM used to sit in my office and fold hands and say, can you please take me to the customer because my boss is coming, I lose my job, because if I don't take him to 2-3 customers, he will think I have no relationship with customers. And I would sit down and say, ऐसा है, इस deal में 60 की जगह 75% discount दो, तो फिर हम करेंगे. I used to trade. But you want to meet customer, you give me 15 points more margin. भाई मैं क्यों ले जाऊं? किस खुशी में ले जाऊं मैं? Because you have stopped adding value. As a systems integrator, I'm proud I added value. A guy who was going and buy distributed computing 30, 25 years ago, I went and sold him networking. When nobody spoke about networking, I was a front-end sales guy. I was not an R&D engineer. But I knew that agar us sham ko I had not told a different story, the customer would not press the pause button. Right? He pressed the pause button and he said, yaar, itna bada hum purchase kar rahe hain. Why should we not look at this technology? And frankly, what was my goal? Was my goal to sell networking? My goal was to sell PCs. My goal was like the rest of the 9 guys there, except one guy who was selling distributed computing, usne sari speccing kari thi. So I have to tell you the full deal, right? That guy had done the speccing. I got to know a couple of years later that actually they had already manufactured the stuff. They thought they would quote unquote manage the entire tender process. But they never realized that there would be one sales guy who will walk in and who will change the game. So never ever believe that you can't change the game. Don't think that there is an OEM. What OEM? Yeah. Who controls the customer? Is the customer your friend or my friend? Huh? First your friend. You introduce me. And then what happens? Then he becomes my friend and he's no longer your friend. You introduce your girlfriend to me, becomes my girlfriend. Your fault, my fault. You can't blame me. Introduce आपने किया, लेके आप गए, खाना भी आपने खिलाया, हाँ? Performance bank guarantee आपने दी, मैंने दी, आपने दी, EMD आपने दी, मैंने दी, आपने दी, तो फिर अगर मेरा ज्यादा कंट्रोल है, गलती आपकी है मेरी. So, guys, I'm not trying to blame anyone. I'm just saying that because we run our businesses and we have expectations that we have to make so much margin, as long as I make that margin, I'm happy. There is a philosophy which many of you would have heard of, and if you've heard the story, please bear with me for a minute, which is the story of the boiling frog. You've heard that story? Yeah. You take a frog, right? And you put him in water, and then you take the flame. So just normal water. The frog is very happy and dancing. You light up the flame just a little. What do you think the frog will do? It's comfortable, right? Very nice, and is having a warm water bath here in this spa, feeling great. Then you take the flame and you increase the flame a little bit. What do you think he will do? Oh, it's now even more comfortable. Continues to swim. After some time, you take the flame up, and you take the flame up, and there'll be a point in time when the frog will boil. So remember this, right? We're all in the same community. We need to know when we have to jump out of the pan. For many years, I went and told everyone, many of you in this room know my story. My story to you was, guys, you can only make a difference if you introduce heterogeneity in a customer's environment. Many of my old friends will know. Deepak, you know this, right? That's my story. My story is simple. Introduce heterogeneity in your customer's environment, because if you don't introduce heterogeneity, your OEM tomorrow will say, मैं इन भाई साहब के साथ क्यों जाता हूं, मैं इनके साथ जाऊंगा, क्योंकि you are saying मेरे को 5% मार्जिन चाहिए, ये बोलते हैं जी 5% छोड़ो मैं 2 पे करूंगा, ये भाई साहब बोलेंगे सर इनको छोड़ो मेरे को सिर्फ टॉप लाइन चाहिए, आप जो मार्जिन दे दो, नहीं तो मैं अपनी जेब से भी आप बोलो तो 5 कार्ट्रिज में भेज ही देता हूं, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, right? So what we have done is, we have not introduced heterogeneity because that's difficult for us to do. मैं कस्टमर को कैसे जाके बोलूं कि HP सर्वर के साथ आप IBM का ये पेरिफेरल ले लो, आप डेल का दूसरा पेरिफेरल ले लो, आप EMC का तीसरा पेरिफेरल ले लो, आप सॉफ्टवेयर चौथे से ले लो या 5वें से ले लो, बहुत मुश्किल है. क्यों? क्योंकि फिर मेरे को HP प्राइस नहीं देगा, फिर मेरे को IBM प्राइस नहीं देगा, फिर मेरे को डेल प्राइस नहीं देगा, फिर मेरे को फलाना प्राइस नहीं देगा. That's the issue. It's a fact. I talk to so many people, large and small companies. The story I get is alike. Boss, I will get arm twisted. मैंने कहा यार मैं भी systems integration side में था. I used to work for companies at that time which were very small. Right? I know I'm a big guy, but यार हमारी arm twisting किसी ने नहीं करी आज तक. Willingly हमने कुछ किया हो तो बात अलग है, but arm twisting no one has been able to do. So today the first thing is यार arm twisting होती है, because you're like that frog, frankly, sitting there feeling very comfortable, not knowing that the flame is going to get hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. So my second message to you is, if you want to survive, introduce heterogeneity. If you don't introduce and inject heterogeneity, you will lose control of the account, mark my words. Today, you have one CIO as a great friend, you are getting business, no issues at all. Tomorrow that CIO goes, a new CIO comes, he has relationship with someone else, will you get business? You will not get business. But if there's heterogeneity, that CIO has little choice. वो देखेगा यार यहाँ तो zoo है. Heterogeneity का क्या मतलब है? Heterogeneity का क्या मतलब है? Zoo. Zoo. So now to manage the zoo, he will say ठीक है यार अगर मैंने इनके साथ दोस्ती करनी है तो कर लेते हैं. बात कर लेते हैं. Because to manage heterogeneity, if you have the control on that architecture, on the design, on the components, on the innards, frankly, it's very, very difficult for someone else to come in, because that someone else may not have the exact same skills around these very technologies that you're talking about. So my second message to you is, please take my words for it. I've been in this industry long enough. I've been on your side of the table for 15 years out of the 30 years. So half, 50-50. So my loyalties are balanced right now, okay? Working for OEMs versus working for systems integrators. So the message I want to give is, if you guys want to survive, and you guys want to be successful in the long term, which I'm sure all of you want to do, introduce heterogeneity. Don't follow the path of least resistance of taking single stack. Single stack is good for OEM, bad for you. You agree or disagree with me? You agree with me? All of you agree with me? But yet, why do you go and sell single stack then, when you agree with me? We agree that we have to do homework, but we don't do homework. Why is that? Easy to sell, correct. Path of least resistance. दो पैसे कम कमाएंगे ना. मेहनत क्यों करें? मेहनत क्यों करें? Why should we go in front of the customer, educate the customer, teach the customer? या घर में बैठ के यार टीवी देखते हैं. बड़े चैनल आ गए हैं आजकल. We agree? So I want you guys to get back into the field and start doing something which you always wanted to do. What did you always want to do? Create a successful business, isn't it? That's why you guys are in business. You guys are the brave guys. I'm the coward. You know, I work for someone. You work for yourself. So you are the brave guys. So I just want the brave guys to continue to be brave. And please, you are the guys who can really take our country to the next level. I truly believe so. You are the entrepreneurs who truly create wealth in our country. Nobody else creates wealth like you do. You generate employment, direct and indirect. You help organizations transform their businesses. You help organizations become more profitable. You create wealth for your own employees as well as for the ecosystem, and also drive that for your customers. So you have a very, very important role to play in our economy and in our business. And all of you have done a fantastic job, and I salute all of you. You've done a great job. As an observer, as a participant, as a fellow traveler, all that I wanted to share with you is, it is time that we get back to basics. Let's get back to selling right. Let's get back to adding value. Let's get back to going into fundamentals of driving a business the way we always used to drive. You know, my friend Indaz, I'm meeting him after a long time. I met him when he had just returned from the US. It was in 1980 something, right? Long time ago. Ab to ab desi ho gaye, pehle American the. And you know, came and settled down in this wonderful place called Jammu and did a great job, right? Lot of good customers I remember of those days who didn't understand computerization. He and I made sales calls many, many years ago as well. But frankly, you know, today when I start looking at businesses and I start looking at the fact that, as you said rightly, the OEMs have started controlling the business, we guys have handed over the reins to them. We have handed the reins. Who has handed the reins? वो OEM को कैसे पता चला customer कौन है, customer की need क्या है, उसका address क्या है, पता क्या है, किसने बताया? Do you think that the OEM would have gone and the CIO would have met the guy? कोई तो introduction हुई होगी. किसी ने तो introduction करी. Introduction करके you should have continued that relationship and continue to drive that. So I hope you've got my second. So my first message was, stick to fundamentals. They still matter. Differentiate. Learn to differentiate. You always used to differentiate when everything seemed the same. We could differentiate at that time. I'm sure we can differentiate today. My second message for the morning to all of you is that please make sure that you drive heterogeneity in your customer environments if you guys want to survive, which I'm sure all of you do. अगर आपको 1-2% टका पे धंधा करना है तो you're welcome. OEMs like me are delighted. हमें आपकी जैसे ही पार्टनर चाहिए. मेरे को क्या चाहिए? See that the total margin that we make from the market is constant K. How we share the margin depends upon the value perception which we can drive between ourselves versus the customer. Customer will give me 100 rupees. Now out of that 100 rupees margin, whether you keep 10, I keep 90, or I keep 10, you keep 90, it depends upon the value perception that both you and I have. So if you are worried that I can swap you out, if I am worried that if you are worried I can swap you out, then you will work at 2-3%. But what if it's the other way around? Suppose you turn around and say, Manoj Chugh, आप क्या है? मैं EMC की जगह डेल लगा दूंगा, मैं डेल की जगह HP लगा दूंगा, आप बताओ. मैं बोलूंगा अरे बॉस ऐसे गलती मत करो यार, मैं 4 डील और लाता हूँ यार, एक करो अभी. You agree or disagree with me? Fact, no? Who controls the account? I'm sure if I were to ask your sales team and yourselves whether you control the account and you control your customers, each one of you will say, yes, you control your customers. You agree? You control your customers? You agree you control your customers? So then you should be making 35-40% margin. Are you making 35-40% margin? Then you're not controlling your customer. The acid test is margin. What is the margin that an Indian software company makes? You know, everyone's public results, right? Infosys, XYZ. What is the margin they're making? Huh? Right? So should you not be making the same margin? Their customer is seeing value, your customer is not seeing value, and yet you say, I control my account. Bhaiya, kaisa control? Kaisa control? हल्का क्या डिफरेंस है? हल्का क्यों है? हल्का क्या है? Perception of value. Hardware है. Hardware is far more difficult to manage than software. हार्डवेयर डाउन होता है, आपको इंजीनियर भेजना पड़ता है, आपको स्पेयर पार्ट्स करने पड़ते हैं, आपको 4 बार OEM के पैर पकड़ने पड़ते हैं कि भैया मेरा कस्टमर मेरी जान ले लेगा. नहीं, यू डू दैट ना. फिर OEM दूसरी साइड बोलेगा यार आई एम बिजी, आज तो सैटरडे है, मैं थोड़ी मैं को बात करूंगा, मैं तो OEM हूं ना. ऑर्डर आपने उठाया, मैंने थोड़ी. किसने उठाया ऑर्डर? आपने उठाया. 40% कोई नहीं देता एग्री, 40% आपको खींच के बनाना है, ये मैं कह रहा हूं. I am telling you, introduce heterogeneity, control the account, you will make margin, and believe me, think in your mind, you don't even need to answer this. In accounts where you have truly added value, have you made more margin than other accounts or not? Why? Why did you make more margin? नहीं बनाना चाहिए था ना फिर. You never went to the customer से नहीं सर आप बहुत ज्यादा पैसे दे रहे हैं, आप ये वापस ले लो चेक. क्यों नहीं बोलते हो आप? See, many of us also find there are transactions happening in the market. तो आप भी बोलते बहती गंगा में हम भी हाथ धो लेते हैं. चलो यार वो 5% आना मैं 4 पे करूंगा, 3 पे करूंगा, 2 पे करूंगा. I also have had partners who have turned around and said, सर हमारा तो कस्टमर के साथ खाता है, आप ऐसे करो टॉप लाइन पे कर दो, आपकी डील के ऊपर मैं 25 लाख और कस्टमर को साथ दे दूंगा. अब बताओ मेरे जैसा OEM क्या बोलेगा? मैं बोलूंगा भैया लंच वंच पे आओ यार, मतलब ऐसे और बताओ और कितना है तुम्हारी किट्टी, और कितनी है? 25 लाख इस कस्टमर के साथ है, बाकी कस्टमर के साथ कितनी किट्टी है? सो देयर विल आई मेक मार्जिन और यू विल मेक मार्जिन. मेरे से बड़ा कोई बेवकूफी नहीं होगा अगर आपको मैं मार्जिन बनाने दूं तो. You look at all the US technology companies, you've seen the balance sheets, right? Whether it's a networking company, whether it's a computing company, etc. I'm not like taking names, right? I'm part of your fraternity. What is the margin that they run their business at? You look at a hardware company, what is the margin that hardware computing companies are making? %60. Not less than 100%. 80%, 70%. I have run companies, don't ask me, I can't give you names, okay? I have run businesses in this country for technology companies when the market was bleeding and the market had gone through a downturn of 80%. When all you guys in this room made 1%, 2%, 3%. We were in the same market with the same customers. All right? So don't tell me you cannot make margin in this market. Anyone who tells me you cannot make margin in this market, ask me. I've been in this market 30 years, always made money, always made margins.
Once you scale up the things.
When I was a small guy, I differentiated, I made huge margin.
Yeah. Once you scale up, then you become a.
So when I scale up, I make more margin. Nothing becomes commodity. You make it commodity. You make it commodity. Don't make it commodity. Guys, why are you making it commodity? You educate the customer, you explain to him bits, bytes and snakes, you tell him, sir, मेरे bill of material में ये जो है ना 25 item है. वो Indian customer आपकी तरह smart है, बोलते 25 item, he will call his procurement guy, बेटा ये 25 item का check कर कौन कौन supplier है, साले सबको phone लगा. अब वेबसाइट पे, अभी तो वेबसाइट, भाई मैं पुराने जमाने का आदमी हूँ, वेबसाइट पे डाल दो, मेक इट वर्स, फोन भी नहीं करना, बॉम्ब उठा के 25 आइटम में डाल दिया, अगली बार आप आए, आप बोलो, and I can tell you it's a fact. And I remember having negotiated with vendors on the other side, guys. I remember negotiating with guys on the other side. We all do. You're also a customer as well as a vendor. I sat with the guy and I asked him, before we begin this discussion, tell me how much margin you want to make. I said, let's first clarify that. Then we will have a discussion. I said, I want you to make money. You don't make money, you're not going to serve me well in the long term. He said, Manoj, yaar, I want to make 10% margin. I said, I'm writing 10% on one side. Now let us do the arithmetic. I will add this in the end. I will compute all duties, taxes. I will give you 10% over and above that so that you make 13, 14%, right? Weighted average margin. We started doing the arithmetic. वो हर item में जो है ना, मेरे को 20% बढ़ा के बोलता रहा. मैंने कहा देख बेटा ऐसे है, तूने कहा 10%, तो 10% is here. So let's do honest arithmetic. We did honest arithmetic. And when we came to the price with the 10% margin that he was looking for, it was 30% lower than his best price that he had ever given. Now, who educated me? Who educated me? कुछ नहीं किया मैंने. So it's so simple. You just have to scratch the surface and all of us will tell our customer more than the customer will ever know or want to know or need to know. Over-education can be dangerous, no? Education is good, but ज़्यादा पढ़ाई लिखाई भी खतरनाक है. So I think, and also we confuse our customers, because our customers love this game. Our customers came to us because he had a business need. We started teaching the guy technology. We forgot that, look, he wants to leverage this technology to solve a business need. He also got excited with the technology and the business need was where it was. And then we started getting into this technology silo and we kept going there and kept going there and kept going there and went down and went down and went down. So do I have a promise from all of you that you will endeavor to make better margins for yourselves? Do I have your promise that you will endeavor to make better margins? Why should you make better margins? You need to make better margins because when you make better margins, where do you keep that money? You don't keep, gadde mein to nahi paise rakhte na. Where do you keep that money? The money goes into the banking system. Right? When the money goes into the banking system, that money can multiply and replicate wealth for everyone within our economy and within our community. And when you create greater wealth, it's also a question of greater esteem. I have worked for companies where young engineers have come to me and said, sir, I have a problem. I want to change my job. I said, why do you want to change your job? He says, whenever my parents go to look for a bride for me, they are not finding anyone because nobody has heard the name of my company. Does this sound familiar to all of you? So now you know I have really been on your side of the table. Just in case some guys had a doubt. This CIA wala banda yahan aaya. So we all have the same problem. We all have an issue of recognition. We all have an issue where our employees many times come and say, look, I want to go and work for a company with a very big brand. I have a friend who runs a very successful business, a software business. And I asked him one day, I said, your software facility is next to Infosys and, HCL and all these big guys. But I find that our attrition is very low. Why is that? I said, I'm very, very impressed with you. He says, none of my people walk to those other organizations because they know that the quality of work that they are going to get with me is going to be very different as compared to what they will get there. So it's a question of self-esteem. Please remember you're also hurting the esteem of your own employees and your own people. Don't do that. That is not fair. That is not right. You don't want to hurt the esteem of anyone in your own business. You agree with me? If you make good margins and you start talking about your war stories of how you've been so successful in running so many campaigns, I'm sure that your sales teams and your support and services teams will feel more motivated. You agree with me? If you have heterogeneity, your services guys will feel very, very happy. Otherwise, he'll tell you, sir, every day you send me to go and install these 4 boxes. Frankly, now I'm tired of doing the same job. Can we not go and get something more complex? Can we not go and get something more exciting? Can we not go and get something very, very different?